Hey there, horror fans! Welcome back to another spine-chilling tale that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Have you ever heard the tale of the killer car in the junkyard? It's a story that has been whispered around campfires and in hushed tones for decades. Buckle up, because this chilling story is going to take you on a ride you won't forget. It's a tale of vengeance, mystery, and the supernatural. It all started back in the late 1930s, a time when the streets were ruled by gangsters and the air was thick with the scent of danger. A notorious mobster named Vito Romano owned a sleek, black 1936 Cadillac. This car was more than just a mode of transportation. It was a symbol of his power and influence. This wasn't just any car. It was a masterpiece of engineering and luxury, a rolling fortress that commanded respect and fear. It was his pride and joy, his rolling fortress. Vito was known to be fiercely protective of his Cadillac, treating it almost like a member of his family. But Vito wasn't the type of guy you'd want to cross. He was ruthless, and his reputation for dealing with enemies was legendary. Rumor has it he handled his business in that very car. It was said that many of his enemies met their end in the back seat of that Cadillac. Deals, hits, and who knows what else. The car was a silent witness to countless crimes, its leather seats soaked with the secrets of the underworld. It was whispered that the souls of his victims were bound to the Cadillac. The car became a vessel of their torment, a prison for their restless spirits. Fast forward to the present day. The world had changed, but the dark legacy of Vito Romano and his Cadillac had not been forgotten. Vito and his car met their end in a fiery showdown with the feds. The once mighty Cadillac was reduced to a smoldering wreck. The Cadillac, charred and battered, ended up in an old junkyard on the outskirts of town. It was a sad end for such a magnificent machine. And that's where our story gets really creepy. The junkyard became a place of fear and mystery, with the Cadillac at its heart. For years, the Cadillac sat there, rusting away. It was a forgotten relic, a ghost of the past slowly being reclaimed by nature. But strange things started happening. The junkyard workers began to notice odd occurrences that defied explanation. The junkyard workers reported hearing voices at night. These weren't just any voices. They were faint, desperate cries that sent chills down their spines. Faint whispers like someone crying out for help. The voices seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, echoing through the night. Sometimes, they'd catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure sitting in the driver's seat. It was as if the car was still being driven by an unseen force. But every time they got closer, it would vanish. The figure would dissolve into the darkness, leaving them questioning their sanity. A brave or maybe foolish young mechanic named Jake decided to investigate. He was determined to uncover the truth behind the haunted Cadillac. He was drawn to the Cadillac, fascinated by its history. The stories of its dark past intrigued him, and he couldn't resist the lure of the unknown. One foggy night, Jake sneaked into the junkyard with a flashlight in hand. The air was thick with anticipation as he approached the car. As he approached the car, a chill ran down his spine. It was as if the very air around the Cadillac was charged with a malevolent energy. The air around it was ice cold, despite the warm night. Jake could see his breath misting in front of him, a stark contrast to the summer heat. Jake reached out to touch the rusty handle, and that's when it happened. The moment his fingers brushed the metal, the car seemed to come alive. The car roared to life, headlights flashing, engine rumbling like a beast awakened from a long slumber. It was a sound that echoed through the junkyard, a growl of defiance. The doors flew open and slammed shut with a force that knocked Jake to the ground. He was thrown back, his heart pounding in his chest. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding, and bolted out of the junkyard. Fear drove him forward, his mind racing with the impossibility of what he had just witnessed. But the Cadillac wasn't done with him. It seemed to have a mind of its own, a relentless spirit that refused to let go. Over the next few days, Jake was haunted by nightmares. His sleep was plagued by visions of the Cadillac and its ghostly driver. He saw Vito's ghostly figure, eyes burning with rage, driving the Cadillac. The mobster's spirit seemed to be bound to the car, seeking revenge from beyond the grave. In his dreams, the car would chase him down dark, deserted streets, its engine growling like a predator. The headlights bore down on him, a relentless pursuit that left him breathless. No matter how fast he ran, the Cadillac was always right behind him. It was a nightmare from which he couldn't escape, a terror that followed him into the waking world. Terrified, Jake confided in an old local historian who knew about Vito Romano's dark past. The historian listened intently, his face growing pale as Jake recounted his experiences. The historian told him that the Cadillac was cursed, a vessel of vengeance for all the souls trapped by Vito's cruelty. The car was a conduit for their rage and sorrow. The only way to break the curse was to destroy the car completely. It was a daunting task, but Jake knew it was the only way to find peace. But that was easier said than done. The car seemed to have a will of its own, and destroying it would be no simple feat. One stormy night, Jake and the historian returned to the junkyard, armed with gasoline and matches. The wind howled around them as they approached the Cadillac. They doused the Cadillac and set it ablaze. The flames leaped up, consuming the car with a ferocity that mirrored the anger of the trapped souls. As the flames consumed the car, they heard a blood-curdling scream, as if the souls inside were finally being released. It was a sound that pierced the night, a cry of liberation and agony. The fire roared and crackled, and then silence. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and the weight of something unspoken. The next day, all that remained was a pile of ash and twisted metal. The Cadillac was no more, its dark legacy reduced to nothing but memories. The whispers and shadows were gone. The junkyard was finally at peace, the malevolent presence lifted. Jake never spoke of that night again, but he knew one thing for sure. The experience had changed him, leaving a mark that would never fade. Some stories are meant to stay buried in the past. They are too dark, too dangerous to be brought into the light. And some cars are better left in the junkyard, forever. They are relics of a time best forgotten, haunted by the ghosts of their past. So if you ever find yourself wandering through an old junkyard, be careful. The past has a way of reaching out, and you never know what might be waiting for you in the shadows. You never know what might be waiting for you in the shadows. The darkness holds many secrets, and not all of them are meant to be uncovered. Thanks for listening, and remember, stay spooky. Keep your wits about you, and never forget that some stories are more than just tales. They are warnings. As Jake walked away from the junkyard, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching him. The shadows seemed to follow him, whispering secrets of the past. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see the ghostly figure of Vito Romano, but there was nothing, just the eerie silence of the night. Jake knew that the haunted Cadillac was gone, but the memories of that night would haunt him forever. The past had a way of leaving its mark, a scar that never truly healed. Years later, Jake would tell his story around campfires, warning others of the dangers that lurked in forgotten places. His tale became a legend, a cautionary story for those who dared to explore the unknown. The listeners would sit in rapt attention, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. They would shiver at the thought of the haunted Cadillac and the restless spirits it once held. And as the night grew darker, the shadows would seem to come alive, dancing in the mist. The story of the haunted Cadillac would linger in their minds, a reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. So the next time you find yourself alone in the dark, remember Jake's story. The past is never truly gone, and some spirits never rest. Be cautious, be aware, and always keep an eye on the shadows. You never know what might be lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The darkness holds many secrets, and some are better left undisturbed. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and never forget the haunted Cadillac and the mobster's revenge. If you liked the video, please hit the subscribe button for more tales.